Chapter 7. A measured dose of suspicion. Afternoon light cut through the dungeon windows, throwing weird shadows across the stone floor. I finished corking the last neutralizing draft, the silence thick after another day of student disasters. "Professor," I knew that voice before I turned around. Careful, respectful, smart kid. "Nott," I said. "What is it?" Theodore stepped inside, moving like he was walking through a minefield. At least he'd thought before speaking more than most managed. "I saw something last night." Now he had my attention. "Where?" "Third floor corridor. I was coming back from astronomy. Took the long way to avoid Filch." He paused. "I heard footsteps. Thought it might be a ghost. But then I saw Professor Quirrell, and he looked sick, leaning against the wall, talking to himself. Or Nott frowned. Maybe not to himself. It sounded like he was pleading with someone. What else? He went still, like something had just settled into place. Then he walked away like nothing happened. I studied the boy's face. No lies there. Just fear trying to hide behind Slytherin composure. "You won't mention this to anyone," I said. "Of course not." "Professor, good. Now I need a list of students staying for Christmas holidays. Can you handle that?" "Yes, sir." After he left, I found myself walking toward the staff room, pieces clicking together in ways I didn't like. Quirrell sat alone, staring at the same page of magical theory quarterly he'd been on when I'd passed 20 minutes ago. The smell hit me before I was halfway across the room, something wrong underneath his usual nervous sweat. "Evening, Quirrell," I said, closing the door. He jumped like I'd hexed him. "Oh, Professor Snape. Good evening. You've been taking a lot of night walks lately." His hands shook as he set down the magazine. "The stars help me think, do they?" I moved closer. "That's a new turban." His hand flew to his head like I'd threatened to pull it off. A gift from a grateful student. Must have been very grateful. The silence stretched between us. He wasn't meeting my eyes anymore. "Quirrell," I said quietly, "if you're in over your head with something, now would be the time to speak up." For just a second, something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or relief. Then it was gone. "I don't know what you mean." I stared at him for another long moment, then turned to leave. "Careful with those midnight strolls," I said without looking back. "The castle can be dangerous after dark." The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded way too much like a coffin lid. The parchment crackled between my fingers like dying autumn leaves, its official seal long since broken and discarded into the wastepaper basket with appropriate contempt. Blood-Replenishing potion, calming draft, and 5 files of Veritaserum. The ministry's incompetence had reached such heights that they now required a mere schoolmaster to compensate for their lack of preparation. I surveyed the bottles arranged on my laboratory bench. The blood-replenishing potions gleamed like liquid rubies in crystal phials, catching torchlight that flickered across the dungeon walls. 3 bottles. Each requiring 7 hours of meticulous brewing. The calming draft sat in modest containment, pale lavender liquid shimmering with ethereal tranquility, a quality I sorely lacked after dealing with ministry correspondence. The Veritaserum commanded attention. 5 files of the most potent truth serum known to wizardkind, each drop worth more than most earned monthly. Colorless, deceptively simple, yet within each bottle lay power to unravel carefully constructed lies. Restricted use, aura, office only. Professor Draco's voice drifted from the doorway, tentative, yet tinged with familiar Malfoy drawl. Pale features illuminated by greenish dungeon light cast sharp shadows beneath aristocratic cheekbones. "What is it, Mr. Malfoy?" Bai replied without turning, securing the final Veritaserum cork with preservation charm. He stepped closer, footsteps echoing against stone. "May I assist you, Professor?" I nodded. I retrieved protective cases from beneath the workbench, cheech-lined with dragonhide padding, enchanted against temperature fluctuations and impact. One cannot toss priceless potions into satchels hoping for the best. The Veritaserum required special handling, each field wrapped individually in charmed silk before placement in temperature-controlled compartments. Draco watched with genuine interest rather than the glazed expression, accompanying his classmates' observations. I said, holding up one file so light caught its crystalline clarity, represents Brewing's pinnacle. 3 lunar cycles for proper potency. Ingredients gathered at precise astronomical moments. Techniques challenging even accomplished masters. Yet the ministry treats it like common cold remedy. Will they use it properly? Draco asked, accepting the sealed case. They should be. I sealed the final case with magical locks and physical clasps. Fortunately, that becomes their problem once these leave my laboratory. After packing and sending the order to the ministry, I went to see the headmaster. That fire in Dumbledore's office was burning low, casting long shadows over the cluttered shelves and glittering instruments. The air carried the familiar scent of polished wood parchment and a faint trace of lemon drops. I stood stiffly, arms folded, in front of his desk. He didn't to watch him, yes. I turned sharply. No, Albus. I watch him. I'm the one tracing his footsteps. I'm the one intercepting him in corridors at midnight. Don't pretend you're the one with your wand drawn. There was silence. Then, I trust you to do what must be done, Severus. And you have never disappointed me. I looked at the flames. You're playing a long game, I muttered. But games end. And when they do, someone loses. Dumbledore didn't respond. I'll continue my watch, I said. But if that man crosses one more line, I won't ask for your opinion again. He nodded once. I wouldn't expect you to. The dungeon smelled of damp stone and hellebore. I watched students bent over their cauldrons, most of them ruining what should have been a simple antidote. I had noticed Draco Malfoy lingering, slower than usual. His hands were restless, tugging at his sleeves, adjusting the fastenings of his robes. By again and again. I watched from the side of the room. Your measurements were off, I said at last, gesturing to the lumpy boil cure potion still congealing in his cauldron. Draco flushed and looked down. "It won't happen again." His voice was brittle. There was something else in it. Not fear, not shame, ... I stepped closer. "Has your father written?" He hesitated, a heartbeat too long. Then, not recently, a lie. Lucius Malfoy never missed a chance to dictate his son's education by proxy. He expects top marks in every subject. Draco added, more to himself than to me. Says I should be leading the year. And there it was. The boy was not afraid of failure. He was afraid of disappointing a man who measured worth by reputation and control. I had seen it before, too many times. A pale echo of a powerful name, straining to fill robes stitched from another man's ambition. I said nothing. There was nothing useful in sympathy, and nothing safe in pity. Instead, I lifted my wand and vanished the potion from his cauldron with a flick. Pay attention. His eyes flicked up, and for a moment he looked very much like Lucius. Then he lowered them again and said only, "Yes, sir." Longbottom's hands shook as he measured dragon claw powder. The boy was going to melt his cauldron again. Granger's potion was already the right color, while Potter's had turned an alarming purple. "Time," I said. "Clean your stations." Students scrambled to pack their things. I waited, then dismissed them. A massive fir tree blocked the corridor outside. Hagrid's boots stuck out from underneath. "What your family's used to," Malfoy was saying. Weasley's face went red. He lunged at Malfoy, grabbing his robes. "Weasley," I shouted. Ron froze. Hagrid's head appeared from behind the tree. Pine needles stuck in his beard. "He was provoked, Professor Snape," Hagrid said. "Malfoy insulted his family. Fighting breaks school rules," I said. 5 points from Gryffindor Weasley." Malfoy brushed off his robes. He pushed past with Crabbe and Goyle, stepping on fallen needles. The castle reverberated with insufferable cheerfulness that set my teeth on edge. Holly and mistletoe draped every surface, their verdant leaves conjuring memories I had spent years burying. The great hall reeked of cinnamon and cloves. The house elves had outdone themselves with decorations so garish they made even Dumbledore's flamboyant sensibilities appear restrained. Most students had fled home for the holidays, blessing the corridors with silence. No long-bottom disasters, no Weasley explosions, no incessant prattling about Quidditch or adolescent gossip. Peace. At last, Harry remained. Naturally, he roamed the halls with the youngest Weasley and that insufferable Noital Granger, their voices echoing through the stone passages like fingernails against slate. Even during my supposed respite, I could not escape that unruly black hair so achingly reminiscent of his father's dot at the Christmas feast. I observed him among the sparse gathering of students, and something contracted sharply in my chest. Those threadbare robes, those brilliant green eyes that once had looked upon me with warmth, not wariness and contempt. But this was not her. This was James Potter's spawn. His father's arrogance barely restrained beneath a mask of boyish uncertainty. Dumbledore's gaze found mine across the hall. that maddening twinkle betraying his awareness of my thoughts. A notion pressed suddenly to the forefront of my mind. If someone was indeed searching for the stone, they would begin with Nicholas Flamel. I caught sight of Filch lurking near the entrance, his hunched frame and perpetually sour expression mirroring my own mood. Rising from my seat, I made my way toward him. "Filch," I said, lowering my voice so no student could overhear. The caretaker turned to me, eyes gleaming with his usual malicious anticipation. "I have a task for you," I continued. "Keep watch over the restricted section of the library. If you see anyone, and I mean anyone, wandering there after hours, you are to report directly to me." Filch's lips curved into something that might, with generosity, be called a smile. "Of course, Professor Snape." I withdrew early to the dungeons, where frigid stone reflected the ice in my veins. Here Christmas could not penetrate. Here I could pretend it was merely another day in an endless succession. Another year of my atonement. Yet even in the sanctuary of my chambers, the weight of my vow pressed down like a gravestone. The boy must be shielded, must endure, must grow formidable enough for the trials ahead. He would never comprehend the sacrifice. His hatred of me would only deepen, and those emerald eyes would torment me through every Christmas that remained. Later, I prowled the darkened corridors on my nightly patrol, my footsteps echoing softly against stone floors. The castle held its familiar nighttime stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of settling beams or the faint whistle of wind through ancient mortar. My path had led me toward the upper floors when Filch's unmistakable voice reached my ears. "You asked me to come directly to you, Professor. If anyone was wandering about at night, and somebody's been in the restricted section," he wheezed. "Predictable. Another student convinced of their cleverness, prowling the halls under cover of darkness. The restricted section, no less. Curiosity outpacing sense. The restricted section." My voice cut through the shadows like a blade. "Well, they cannot be far. We'll catch them." A breath quick, sharp brushed the silence. I spun toward the sound. Nothing. Not Peeves. Not Filch. I narrowed my eyes. There, a shimmer. The faintest distortion near the far wall, like heat wavering above stone. I stilled, watching the cloak, the way it bent light, the subtle drag in the air as it shifted. A signature etched into memory, James Potter's favored prank tool. How many times had I chased that cursed shimmer across the astronomy tower? How many times had I endured hexes from nowhere, my cauldron erupting as he laughed beneath its folds? And now it drifted before me again, only this time his sun was beneath it. I did not call out. I let him slip away, turning sharply on my heel. I made for the headmaster's office. Dumbledore was seated by the hearth as though waiting. Firelight danced in his half-moon spectacles, obscuring his expression. "You gave it to him," I said. He did not flinch. "Yes, you gave him that cloak. James Potter's invisibility cloak. He needed it to do what? Sneak about after hours, spy, chase the stone. Dumbledore sipped his tea, infuriatingly calm. To protect himself, you've armed a child with one of the most powerful tools in this castle, and now he wanders invisible while something hunts what you hide. He is drawn to it, Severus. The stone, the mirror, all of it. It is in his blood. It was in his father's blood to gamble lives for the thrill of it. You mistake recklessness for bravery, and you mistake bitterness for caution, Dumbledore said softly, my hands clenched at my sides. He thinks I am the enemy, yes, and you allow it, because it keeps him guarded, because it keeps you where you are needed most. I turned toward the door. Will you keep watching him? Dumbledore asked. I always do, I murmured. Then, after a pause, I want to referee the Gryffindor Quidditch matches. I need more control. I have to ensure nothing happens to the boy like the last match. Could not agree more, Dumbledore said, his eyes glinting.